Robert Huff, Cross-Section, an illustrative look at the work of famed artist and former Miami-Dade College art professor Robert Huff, who passed away in 2014. This book is the brainchild of his widow, Barbara Young. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, Barbara, I understand that you worked with Beth Dunlop for this book. Can you tell us why did you decide to work on this book?
We actually started thinking about a book before Bob passed away, and I had been talking with Carol Jazar, who was Bob's dealer at the time, and also with Helen Cohen, who was a very close friend, who was the art critic at the Miami Herald for many years, and with Bob. And the idea began there, and I guess because I'm a librarian by trade, I worked with the Miami-Dade Public Library System many years, and actually the book fair was sort of the concept of some of the people at the library working with Mitchell Kaplan and some of the independent book dealers, and Dr. Bedrone wonderfully took it under his wing and has given it a great home here at the Miami-Dade College. But anyway, books have been always so important to me, and I thought we knew Bob was ill, and I wanted to document his life, and I wanted to do a book, even though there are some people that say, you know, books are passé, but I think if you live in South Florida and you come to the book fair, or you know about Mitchell Kaplan and Books and how many stores he has and stuff like that, books are alive and well in South Florida.
Books are very much important.
Yes.
This book, how long did it take for you to compile all his work into one hardcover book?
He actually had a part in that before he passed away. He he was very organized, and he had always documented his work, so we had slides to work from.
Oh, wow.
And he had created a large notebook, made 4 copies, one for Carol Jazar and one for myself and one for himself and one as a sort of an index. But we used those notebooks as guides. Things were laid out chronologically. We definitely did not use all the work in the notebooks, but I was very, very fortunate with this book because Bob was a well-known artist, was a very popular artist, and very, very respected.
Absolutely.
And not only at the North Campus, but you know, with people that he showed with over the years and galleries that he worked with over the years. So I had a lot of support. Letter 16 Press, which is an independent press run by Frank Casale and Brett Sokol, who's the arts editor at the Ocean Drive magazine, as well as writes for the New York Times and for the Wall Street Journal and various things, got involved with me and thought it was a wonderful idea to do. And then we had a lot of information that we compiled over the years. Bob had been interviewed by lots of people, so there were lots of records and reviews and things like that by people like Helen Cohen and Griff Smith and Elisa Turner and Ann Tashida and George Fishman, and we had all that information, plus we had 2 interviews. I did an oral history, about 2-hour interview with just a tapes with Bob.
Oh, wow.
And then Baron Shear, who's a wonderful video artist here in Miami, sat down with Helen Cohen and with Bob and did a 2-hour interview. And so all that information was available for Beth Dunlop, who wrote the beautiful essay for the book, to work with. And then Frank Casale, the designer of the book and one of the principals at Letter 16 Press, rephotographed a lot of the work, and he did the design of the book, and he was very, very sensitive to the work. And another wonderful photographer here in the area who works primarily with architecture is Stephen Brooke. Mm-hmm. And Stephen has done lots and lots of books. He's done lots and lots of books with Beth Dunlop, but after Bob had passed away, we were moving things around in the studio, and I was concerned that we document the studio while it still was Bob's work, Bob's studio, his space. And Stephen came over one afternoon and spent several hours and photographed the studio. Mm-hmm. And those shots of the studio sort of punctuate the shots of the work, which gives it a kind of a nice flow to, you know, see the work and then go back to the artist's space. And so you're really aware of Bob's sense of order and
Now, Mr. Huff's work spans from creativity and provocative. Is there one word to describe his work?
I think that he would struggle with all of those words. It's very hard to describe it. He thought of himself as a person working with landscape, but it was a landscape more and more informed by architecture. Mm-hmm. And so the early work that is sort of some of it's sort of whimsical. A lot of it draws from, he loved to fish. He spent a lot of time on the water, in the ocean, and especially in the Everglades and stuff like that. So the textures and the colors and the light of those spaces really informs the early work. And then more and more you see the architecture becoming part of it.
He obviously was a very important part of Miami's art scene. Do you think he was responsible for this trend?
Well, he was. Miami-Dade College has had some wonderful art professors. And Bob came to the college in 1968 and was a professor, and then assumed the position of chair of the art department. But I grew up in Miami, but I came back in 75 to work with the library system, 76 to work with the library system. And when I came back, the colleges were doing wonderful things, and the library was doing wonderful things. We had an Artmobile program. That was my job. But I loved to go to the shows at North Campus. Bob Thiele and Elmer Craig and Charles Hashem. Wonderful work was going on up there. And then at South Campus, Robert Huff and Pete Kunsel and, Richard Williams. And so very, very strong and very, very important. When people talk about, Art Basel and the beginning of arts in Miami, the colleges have a huge role, and as does the University of Miami and the Low Museum.
Now, people who would like to, witness Mr. Huff's work in person, I know that there's some museums that still showcase his work, as well as some public art displays. Which places can they go and see his work?
Well, we've just had a wonderful show at the DeLand Museum. Unfortunately, it's down now, but if people want to see Bob's work, there's a beautiful Art in Public Places piece that's part of. It's out by one of the police stations out in the Southwest. I think it's the South Dade Regional Police Station. There's a beautiful Art in Public Places piece at the Palmetto Metro Rail Station. If you go to the Broward County Airport or the Palm Beach Airport, there's beautiful work there. Right now, the Low Museum has got a permanent collection exhibition up, and there's a beautiful piece of Bob's work in that collection.
Well, Ms. Barbara Young, thank you so much for joining us in today's show.
It's been a pleasure.
Remember that the 35th Miami Book Fair begins Sunday, November 11, and ends with the Weekend Street Fair extravaganza beginning Friday, November 16th until Sunday, November 18th. This is an event for the entire family.